Okay, so in this problem we have 8x to the 15th being raised to the negative 1/3. So we have a product which is 8 times x to the 15th, and that whole thing being raised to a negative and fractional exponent. So let's start by seeing what happens when we raise a product to a power. So this shows what happens when we take a product, which is two numbers multiplied together, and we raise that thing to a power. Basically, we take the first term and we raise it to that power, and then we multiply it with the second term also raised to that power. So if we look at the example in front of us, our first term is 8. And we want to go ahead and raise it to the power. So we're going to raise it to the negative 1/3, and then we're going to multiply that with the second term, our b term, which is, in our question, x to the 15th. And then remember, we're going to want to raise that thing to the power. So it's going to be x to the 15th to the negative 1/3. So now we need to look at just one of these things. The second one seems pretty tricky. It's something being raised to the 15th and then raised again to a negative fractional exponent. So why don't we just start with this, 8 and the negative, 8 raised to the negative 1/3. So what happens when we take something to a negative exponent? Let's start with that. Let's not worry about the fraction right now. Let's just pretend this was 8 to the negative 1. 8 to the negative 1 is just 1 over 8 to the 1. Similarly, 8 to the negative 2 is just 1 over 8 squared. 10 to the negative 26, we'll just create a fraction with 1 as the numerator and put 10 being taken to the 26th power as the denominator. So that's pretty simple. But we've got 8 to the negative 1/3. So let's go ahead and write that as 1 over 8 to the 1/3. And then what happens when we take something to a fractional exponent? Well, when we take something to a fractional exponent, we're going to start with the numerator, and we're going to raise the base to the numerator, so 8 to the 1. And then the denominator of the fraction is the root that we're going to take. So 8 to the 1/3 is going to be the cube root of 8 to the first power, which is just 8. So the cube root of 8 means what number cubed is going to give us 8. And that number is 2. 2 times 2 times 2 gives us 8. So the cube root of 8 is 2. Now, remember, we weren't looking for 8 to the 1/3, which would be 2. We were looking for 8 to the negative 1/3. So it's going to be 1 over 8 to the 1/3, or 1 over 2. So the last part is x raised to the 15th, and that whole thing being raised to the negative 1/3. So basically what happens when we have a number being raised to a power, which is then being raised to another power? In that case, we multiply the two exponents. So 15 times negative 1/3 is going to give us negative 5, which makes this x to the negative 5. And go ahead and pause the video now and see if you can remember what we do when we have negative exponents before you, and then you can restart it when you think you figured it out. So x to the negative 5th is just 1 over x to the 5th. So now we've figured out, we've simplified this term, which is 1 over x to the 5th. And now we just need to multiply these two things. 1/2 times 1 over x to the 5th. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times x to the 5th is 2x to the 5th. And that is our final answer.